You know, at this point, I kind of just feel bad for them. I feel bad for the Blue Anon Twitter crew. Boy, have they bought into the narrative that Donald Trump is definitely going to prison this time. Every single week, it seems like they're posting a new article that suggests the walls are closing in this time. Trump is definitely done. We keep hearing them going on and on about this fake elector scheme, and somehow Donald Trump is guilty of it. They always lead with, he did it. Trump's fake elector scheme. Trump presented these fake electors. His lawyers are turning on him, and he's definitely going to jail this time. It's over for the evil orange man. But every single time it's blue balls. They're in a perpetual state of blue balls. They want so badly to celebrate Donald Trump's demise, but it just isn't coming, and it doesn't seem like it's coming anytime soon, as the whole fake electors part of Fani Willis's ridiculous RICO case seems to be falling apart at the seams, based on statements from a key witness's lawyer, statements which, by the way, were made on CNN live on air, probably to the dismay of your average CNN viewer. Let me show you guys what's going on. Let's have a conversation. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, friends, the fake electors scheme. They love it now, don't they? Here's the headline that's been bouncing around as of late. The Chesbrough and Powell plea deals could be a nail in Trump's legal coffin. Kenneth Chesbrough, an architect of Trump's fake elector scheme. Notice how they claim it's Trump's fake elector scheme. That's going to be relevant later on. Pleads guilty in Georgia. The Chesbrough and Powell guilty pleas torch Trump's planned defense. Donald Trump is done. His team is turning on him. It's game over. That's what the leftists are arguing. That's what the leftist fake news journos are printing in their clickbait bogus pieces. The reality, however, probably not exactly what they were looking for. Just take a look.
And I want to ask you and all your listeners, Katie, for one moment to think about this question. If Mr. Chesbrough was the architect of the fake elector scheme, if Mr. Chesbrough was the architect of some plan to bring down democracy, which is what I've heard over and over for the last couple of months, both in court and out of court, would the district attorney of Fulton County have offered him probation and first offender status? I think the answer is no, and I think if you asked her, the answer would be no. And so while Mr. Chesbrough did take responsibility for conspiracy to commit filing of false documents, I want to make something clear. He did not implicate anyone else. He implicated himself in that particular charge. And while he is required to go testify truthfully if he's called by the state, and Mr. Chesbrough is a man of his word, and he will go testify truthfully if called by the state's going to have to decide at some point whether they think Mr. Chesborough's testimony will help them. And if they believe it will help them, well, they'll call him and he'll come testify. But also at the same time, Katie, I will say, if he's called by a defendant, he will come testify and testify truthfully.
Scott, now, listen, you and I have been doing this for a long time, right? Although I technically don't do it anymore. I do this. But your client gave a recorded proffer to the state of Georgia. And what did he say?
I'm not at liberty to say exactly what he said, but here's what I'm at liberty to say. Someone asked me earlier, if you were Donald Trump, would you be worried? And I could personally, honestly answer no. And it's not that Mr. Chesbrough is trying to protect Donald Trump or anyone else. He's not. He's ready to move on with his life. But I was there in the proffer. Again, I'm not going to say what was said because it is a confidential proffer and that will probably get me in trouble. But I can say that I personally do not believe the state will call him to testify on their behalf. If they do, and if I'm wrong, Mr. Chesbrough will be there. He'll testify truthfully. If I were the state, Scott, I would not call.
Look, today, your client has now implicated Trump in this criminal conspiracy. If he is called upon to testify in this Georgia case, is he willing to implicate Trump on a witness stand, which seems to be required in this plea deal that he just struck?
So, Abby, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Second of all, I am going to respectfully disagree with you on one thing. I don't think he implicated anyone but himself. And I just want to point out two important facts that I think will get exactly to your question. Not only did he avoid jail time, but this is the most important. He did not plead guilty to the RICO charge. Mr. Chesbrough pled guilty, and I printed it out to make sure I had the exact words, conspiracy to commit filing of false documents. The RICO charge was dismissed. And listen, Mr. Chesborough accepted responsibility for count 15 of the indictment, and he agreed that if he were called by the state, he would come testify truthfully. And he is a man of his word, and he will do that. Whether his testimony is going to be helpful to the state, that's going to be for the state to decide. I personally do not see his testimony being helpful for the state, but if the state wants to call him, he absolutely will come and tell the truth. And if they think that's helpful for them, and they think they could convince a jury that his testimony is helpful for them, then so be it.
So who in Mr. Chesborough's view was the architect of this fake electors plot?
Mr. Chesborough doesn't think there was a fake electors plot. And Abby, please, again, I know I'm repeating myself, but the fake electors plot was part of the RICO conspiracy. And Fani Willis dismissed the RICO charge. And the charge that he pled to has nothing to do with being the architect of the fake elector plot. And I will say, and I will ask anyone listening to ask themselves this question. If Mr. Chesborough was the architect of the fake elector plot, then would the district attorney of Fulton County offer him 5 years probation and first offender? I don't think she would. And that really just proves that while he did accept responsibility for count 15, that he was never the architect of the fake elector plot. And I think if you asked him who was, I think he would say there wasn't a fake elector plot, and there certainly wasn't an architect, and it certainly wasn't him.
The man that you just listened to was Scott Grubman. That is Kenneth Chesborough's lawyer, his legal voice, his legal representative. And he's saying a couple things quite clearly here. Firstly, he's debunking the leftist narrative that Kenneth Chesborough and Sidney Powell and the plea deals that they struck with Fani Willis have something to do with them essentially admitting that they were the architects of this fake elector scheme. Isn't the case at all. The assumption is that they accepted this plea deal and that now they're going to testify. Kenneth Chesborough's lawyer very clearly suggests that Kenneth Chesborough is totally open to be a witness and to testify, but that probably his testimony isn't going to be helpful to the state's prosecution, which pretty much completely debunks what lefties are posting on Twitter. He also denies that there was a fake elector scheme whatsoever, and apparently isn't implicating President Donald Trump as the architect of this supposed fake elector scheme. The RICO charge against Kenneth has been completely dropped, which suggests if we go back to the Politico headline, which reads that Kenneth Chesborough is the architect of, quote, Trump's fake elector scheme, it seems as though the architect of the fake elector scheme just had all charges related to said fake elector scheme pretty much dismissed, because that's essentially what the RICO charge was about. So where do we go from here? Is the suggestion that Donald Trump did the fake elector scheme himself? That he presented fraudulent documents and tried pushing forward fake electors? Obviously, that would probably be a lawyer's job to draft those documents and to push for something like that. It wouldn't be Donald Trump doing that himself. So what I'm asking myself is, well, what does this mean? To be completely honest with you, it seems like Fani Willis's case is falling apart at the seams. The whole strategy was to get Trump's legal team to start flipping on him, pointing the finger at him, admitting to the fake elector conspiracy, and pointing the finger at Donald Trump, implicating him directly as the man who requested and was involved in it. But the exact opposite is happening. What is happening is that the supposed architect got all charges dismissed and is now facing, I think, 5 years of probation over presenting, I think, fraudulent documents. So very quickly, the headlines went from Donald Trump is done, Sidney Powell and Kenneth Chesborough and their plea deals are the final nail in Trump's coffin. It went from that to Trump has nothing to worry about with latest Georgia plea deal. Kenneth Chesborough's lawyer says, quote, he didn't snitch on anyone. He went in there. He accepted responsibility. Of course, you heard his statements. And so essentially we went from leftists all giddy and excited to essentially this. You know, not much else to cover here. I think that's pretty much the gist of it. I guess let the Blue Anon Twitter copium begin.